Okay, I see we are live, just confirming the stream. Okay, stream looks good. At this time, will sergeants please start their recordings?
PC recording is up.
Thank you. Recording to the cloud, all set, and good afternoon, and welcome to today's remote New York City Council hearing of the Committee on Environmental Protection. At this time, would all council members and staff please turn on their video? To minimize disruption, please place electronic devices on vibrate or silent mode. Thank you for your cooperation. Chair, we are ready to begin.
Thank you, Sergeant. I want to thank everyone for joining our virtual hearing today of the Committee on Environmental Protection. My name is Jim Gennaro. I welcome everyone, and rather than saying welcome in a general way, okay, I'm following my script. I'm supposed to gavel in 3 times. Gavelled in. Okay, I'm going through the Zoom here. We're joined by Council Members Holden, Councilmember Nurse, Councilmember Kagan, Councilmember Menon, Councilmember Moya, Councilmember Hanks. I would ask staff to text me the names of any members that I might have missed, and also during the proceedings, if Ricky, you could just keep me posted with members who joined the hearing. Certainly want to recognize them. And first order of business, going to turn it over to our moderator, to the committee, Samara Swanston, to go over some procedural items, and then I'll do my opening statement and we can begin. So Samara, if you could proceed.
This hearing of the Environmental Protection Committee. Before we begin, I want to remind everyone that you will be on mute until you are called on to testify, when you will be unmuted by the host. I will be calling on panelists to testify. Please be aware that there could be a delay in muting and unmuting, so please be patient. Please listen for your name to be called. I will be periodically announcing who the next panelist will be. We will begin with testimony from the administration, which will be followed by testimony from members of the public. During the hearing, if council members would like to ask a question, please use the Zoom raise hand function and I will call on you in order. We will be limiting council member questions to 5 minutes, including responses. I will call on you when it is your turn to speak. During the hearing, if council members would like to ask a question, again, use the Zoom raise hand function and I'll call on you in the order that you raised your hand. And now I'd like to hand it over to Chair Gennaro for his opening statement.
Thank you, Samara. I appreciate all your good work on this hearing. This is kind of a tough one to pull together. There's a lot of back and forth with staff, but I think we're in a very good place now. It's kind of a complicated issue, and okay, let me start my statement, okay? Good afternoon. I'm Jim Gennaro, Chair of the Committee on Environmental Protection. Today we'll hear Intro 470 of 2022, a local law to advance the phase out of number 4 heating oil. This bill is being put forward by myself and my co-prime sponsor, Councilmember Caban, and it's also being sponsored by Councilmember Brannan. I have a very complicated opening statement for me that's been drafted with great precision by staff, but I think, you know, it's a complicated issue, and I think I just want to start off by, you know, giving some history and just talking like in a plain language kind of way, just to give people a sense of history, because it's important. You know, going back about 10 years, you know, the council really wanted to do a lot, you know, working hand in hand with the then Bloomberg administration to clean heating oil. You know, heating oil, we burn about, you know, 1 billion or so gallons of you know, heating oil per year. It, you know, produces quite a lot of quite a lot of pollution, or at least the heavier grades of heating oil. And that's what I'm going to get into now, because, and I don't want to make this a tutorial, but it's important for people to understand, where this is all coming from. Once upon a time in New York City, we had 3 grades of heating oil. We have number 2, which most people know, see the trucks driving around the neighborhoods and filling up residential tanks. And then for the huge, so that's grade number 2. Now the next grade up from that, in terms of being more heavy industrial kind of fuel, would be heating oil number 4 and heating oil number 6. Now there are really only 2 kinds of heating oils. There's 2 and there's 6. 4 is a blend of 2 and 6. And what we don't have anymore in New York City is fuel oil blend number 6, which is essentially like tar. It was unbelievably terrible with regard to its emissions. It really had to go. There are places around the state that still use it, but we don't use it here. It was about 1% of the city's buildings that were using fuel oil number 6, but it was producing like the predominant amount of pollution from heating oil, just number 6 alone, with its small penetration, into like the market. It was horrible. It had to go. So 10 years ago, we did a couple of things. Working with DEP. We did this whole package at once. So we worked with the administration and DEP through rulemaking, indicated by, I think, 2015, they were no longer going to certify boilers that burn number 6 oil. So as of 2015, number 6 was out of the question. That was like a huge, clean air benefit for the city. And then the council at the time that we put number 6 on the road to extinction, we legislated in this council, making number 4 oil much cleaner in terms of sulfur content. Sulfur is a really bad pollutant. It creates, sulfur oxides, which is a respiratory irritant. It's bad. And so number 4 oil at the time was north of 3,000 parts per million of sulfur, sometimes around 4,000. And the council legislated that it could be no more than 1,500 parts per million of sulfur, making it a lot cleaner. Okay, good. That's a good thing. And then we made a date certain by which number 4 oil had to be out of service, that people couldn't use it anymore. And for residences, that was January 1st, 2030, or for non-power plant uses. This would be residences, schools, other kinds of commercial enterprise, big engines or whatever. They had to stop using number 4 by January 1st, 2030. And for power plants, they had to stop using it by January 1st, 2025. And so, and then also at the same time, we added bio blends to heating oil, so 2, 4, and 6. We started with a B2 blend, and then we went to B5, which is where we are now. Ultimately, we're going to go to B10 and B20. That's what's in law right now, and there are timetables when that is going to kick in, and that has served to make heating oil cleaner, including number 4. But here's what happened. So this is all very well intended, and so we negotiated this number 4 phase out for January 1st, 2030. But we have seen that with regard to where it is predominantly used, number 4 oil, staff has found through an analysis that is predominantly in communities of color, and so. And notwithstanding the fact that number 4 oil is a lot cleaner than it used to be, it's still very dirty with regard to, let's say, like number 2. So, number 2 is 15 parts per million sulfur, which is, almost hard to detect. So it's essentially sulfur-free, number 2 is. And, number 4 is not at 15, it's at 1,500. And so, these areas of the city where number 4 is being burned, are getting the disproportionate effects of the burning of number 4, and we don't think it's prudent to keep them burning that until January 1st, 2030. So in certain parts of the city, when number 6 boilers were shut down, some of them, converted to number 2 oil, some converted to natural gas, and some of them just went to number 4 oil. And that seemed to happen most in communities of color. And so this provides a rationale, and I think we need a significant rationale to go forward with this bill, because remember, I mean, we made a deal that people could use this stuff until January 1st, 2030, and now we're changing the deal. That's a big deal. I mean, like, we had a handshake on this, and now we're kind of going back on our word. So, for the process, for the purpose of full disclosure, this is not the way I ordinarily like to operate, but things have changed in the last 10 years, and the conversion of number 4 boiler, going from number 4 to number 2 is easier. You don't need to swap out your boiler. You do have to clean out your tank, but it's something that we think is doable, prudent, and part of what I'm going to be talking about today, and we'll hear from witnesses, is the clean air benefits that will accrue from phasing out number 4 more quickly. We currently burn about 45 million gallons of number 4. That's not a great thing. Yes, it's not it's by no means a majority of oil that we burn. Like I said, we burn about 1 billion gallons of heating oil a year. But we can do better than 45 million gallons, particularly if it's being burned in communities of color, and also in a lot of schools. I think we can certainly do better than that. City government, city government uses, they burn about 22% of the 45 million gallons of number 2, and 78% of that 22% is burned in schools. So most of what the government of the city of New York burns is burned in schools, and I think that's a loser. We can certainly do better than that. And because the way things have played out over the last 10 years, that this has shifted, more towards community of color, we have to really do whatever we can for the environmental justice community. So that is the history behind what we're doing and why we are compelled to sort of try to move forward with this bill and to hear what people are going to have to say about it. I lost my train of thought, but let me see if I can try to get it back. So we'll be hearing from the administration, and that's why it's always best to work from a script, but you can't deny me that was a pretty good history lesson, right? Everyone who thinks that was a good history lesson, everybody, that wasn't bad, okay? 78%, 22%, it's all up here, okay? So it's all, we're trying, Julie's smiling. Thank you, Julie, I appreciate that. And so, okay, so let's get the action part of the bill, that's what I was going to talk about, would take, for the users that I mentioned, non-power plant users of number 4 would have to phase out number 4 fuel 5 years faster. And for certain users of number 4, this would be in buildings that use number 4 as a backup fuel. So they're primarily on natural gas, but sometimes they're called upon by the gas utility to come off gas because there's not enough gas to go around. So they're used, so they're called upon to use their backup fuel. And so if their backup fuel is number 4, we're asking them to come off number 4 a little earlier than, they have to come off even sooner. This would be December 31st, 2023, which is 1 year and 1 day sooner than the other people who will phase out by January 1st, 2025. So if you use number 4 as a backup fuel in like a dual fuel kind of thing, then you have to come off a little quicker. And also for number 4 users that use an above ground storage tank, we want them to come off 1 year sooner than everyone else. That would be the last day of 2023 rather than the first day of 2025. And like the rationale for that is that if you're using your oil in an above ground storage tank, it's a little easier to make the switch over to number 2, because the tank is already above ground. it's like, easier to kind of scrub it and all that and get ready for like the number 2 for the conversion from 4 to 2. If you have an underground storage tank, it's a little more yelling and screaming. You don't actually have to take the tank out of the ground, but it's buried in the concrete. You got to bust the concrete. You got to cut the tank open. You got to clean it out. And so, for those, we're going with the 2025 date. And so, and there's all kinds of stuff in the briefing paper about the health effects of this. I think I filibustered my time, but suffice it to say, if you're burning a fuel in communities of color that emits like all of the criteria pollutants, those are the pollutants that are regulated by the Clean Air Act, and others that are not, and others that are outside the Clean Air Act, like heavy metals and that kind of thing. So this is something that we want to move past, and so I just felt particularly compelled to give a thorough rationale for why the council is trying to go back on like a handshake that it previously made. That's not the way I ordinarily like to do business, but I think it's called for, in this case. And so that is probably the most rambling opening statement I ever made. You all are going to get, service badges to say that you lived through this or whatever. Sergeant, make sure everybody gets their badges, please. If we could do that. And with that said, Samara, I want to make sure that has anyone else joined us since I last recognized council members? Samara, anybody? No? Okay. And so with that said, let me go back to my hearing script. Samara, why don't you just tell me what happens now? Okay, here it is. I will now turn it back over to the committee council. I'm officially doing that. Tamara, your ball.
Okay, thank you. And I will now deliver the oath of office to the council members Angela Licata and Julia Casagrande. Okay, do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before this committee, and to respond honestly to the council member questions?
I do.
Thank you. You may begin when ready.
If I could assert some privilege here, I just want to state that I've long worked with Deputy Commissioner Licata. We go way, way back, and she was around for all this stuff when we did all the fuel stuff, and I'm very happy that she's the one representing the administration here, because she has the she has the vast knowledge of the institution about all the steps that we've taken thus far, and it's a pleasure and a privilege to have her before the committee today, and I understand that your colleague from Mayor's Office of MOCEJ, yeah, Mayor's okay, yeah, Julia is here to answer questions. I can't quite make out your last name. My reading glasses I'm due for new prescription, but I can see Julia. Thank you very much for being here. I intend on calling upon you, so get ready, okay? And with that said, Angela, if you give us the benefit of your good testimony, we are all ears.
Good afternoon, Chairman Gennaro and members of the committee. I, in fact, very much appreciated the history lesson. It felt a little like a victory lap for us. And certainly we don't rest on our laurels. And with no further ado, let me jump into my written testimony. I am Angela Licata, Deputy Commissioner for Sustainability at the New York City Department of Environmental Protection. I am joined today by Julia Casagrande, Policy Advisor at the Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice, or MOCEJ. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today about transitioning to less polluting fuels for heating and hot water systems in our city's building stock. This has been a priority for DEP and the City Council for many years, as you recognized. Approximately 5,300 buildings were required to begin transitioning from number from fuel oil number 6 in 2011 as a result of local law 43 of 2010. We know based on the New York State and New York City Community Air Survey data that this change had a very significant impact on improving air quality, especially in northern Manhattan and portions of the Bronx that had especially high concentrations of boiler conversions. Traditionally, vulnerable socioeconomically disadvantaged areas experience the greatest proportion of health benefits from the number 6 fuel oil conversion. And we estimated approximately 1,200 tons of PM 2.5 emissions were reduced and prevented an estimated 210 premature deaths annually. The passage of Local Law 38 of 2015 built on this progress by requiring a full phase out of fuel oil number 4 by 2030. Since 2015, approximately 1,000 boiler applicants have converted from systems that were previously using number 4 to number 2 or natural gas, all voluntarily. Currently, approximately 3,366 buildings across the city now burn fuel oil number 4, with 1,517 using number 4 as a backup fuel to natural gas as part of what is known as a dual fuel system. These buildings use number 4 when natural gas is at a high demand during very cold weather conditions. The other approximately 1,849 buildings use number 4 fuel exclusively. DEP regularly communicates with building owners to ensure that they are aware of regulatory expectations and options to meet these regulations. Phasing out fuel oil number 4 will have important air quality and public health improvements by reducing emissions of particulate matter, oxides of nitrogen, sulfur dioxide, and carbon dioxide. The Department of Health and Mental Hygiene expects these improvements may result in fewer premature deaths, respiratory and cardiac hospitalizations, and asthma emergency room visits. As with the transition from fuel oil number 6, the transition from fuel oil number 4 will have significant health benefits in environmental justice neighborhoods. Approximately 72%, in fact, of these buildings that currently use number 4 are in environmental justice or potential environmental justice communities, especially in northern Manhattan and the Bronx. Converting from fuel oil number 4 to another source will require investment from building owners. The conversion cost varies significantly depending on the building's current system and the new system that is installed. We appreciate that some building owners may need help understanding their options for compliance. So MOCEJ, through the New York City Accelerator, connects building owners with the technical assistance and utility incentives that they will need to transition away from fuel oil number 4. The New York City Accelerator provides personalized outreach and assistance from experts who offer advice on energy efficient and clean energy technology, local laws and incentives, and financing options to fund building upgrades. First launched in 2012 as Clean Heat, this program assisted the phase out from the number 6 fuel oil for many buildings. We have been working toward cleaner heating oil in the city for over 10 years, as was acknowledged by the council member. And there are a number of upcoming biodiesel requirements, both from city and the state. In anticipation of these requirements, building owners should already be taking steps to clean up their fuel equipment to ensure compliance. Currently, the Air Code requires that all buildings convert from number 4 to number 2 oil or alternative sources by 2030. Intro 470 would accelerate the transition timeline. We share council's goal to phase out number 4 oil as soon as possible, so we want to work with the council to ensure that the bill details consider cost and technological considerations to best serve all impacted communities. And we thank the council for their attention to this topic and look forward to working together on this bill. My colleague and I are very happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. I certainly appreciate your good testimony and all of your work over the years to get us. I mean, yeah, what I kind of left out of my rambling statement was, all the gains that were made. And, people should know that, getting rid of number 6, phasing out number 2, phasing out number 4, going to the full extent of bio in heating oil to B20, which we're ultimately going to hit. It's already set in law. And the state doing what it did to take number 2 heating oil and to make it what we call ultra low sulfur, which is 15 parts per million. All those 4 steps combined will be the equivalent of taking every car, truck, and bus off New York City streets forever. So this is number 6 alone was most of that, and so here we are. What I would like to ask the administration, first of all, like what I just heard is something short of support for the bill, which is I kind of expected that, but certainly support for the process to work with us towards this worthy goal. and I certainly do appreciate all the work that you're doing with the accelerator, because it really helps building owners, and it really helps with financing. But at the end of the day, we have, and this will be more to like real estate people if they come on the thing. But at the end of the day, I mean, we have to acknowledge that number 4 is a cheaper fuel, and it has a higher BTU content than number 2. So you literally have to burn more number 2 than you would burning number 4. And so there's kind of a built-in incentive to stay with this currently legal fuel between now and the current phase-out date, which is what we fear, that notwithstanding all these incentives, building owners will keep using it. That's the private sector. And then with regard to the public sector, what I kind of my question for you, and by extension to the whole administration, we have 180 schools that are currently using this stuff, or at least those are the numbers that I had that I have. And I'd like to ask either you or Julia, if I could be so informal as to call you by your first name, as to if you can let us know where these schools are. Not today, you don't have the numbers in front of you, but certainly we want to know where these schools are, and we want to know what I mean, or I want to know. It's my question. I want to know the administration's current commitment to phasing out number 4 in its own assets. With regard to number 4, most of those, I've been told that 78% of the number 4 burned by the city of New York, by the city government, is in schools, but it's burned in some other places as well. And what is the administration? Because now we're not talking about the private sector. We're talking about, the city, deep pockets, can do anything if it has the will to do it. And so what is the city's vision now for phasing out number 4 in all of its own assets, particularly schools?
Well, thank you for that question. And I will answer simply by saying that the schools are starting to make that conversion. And I will turn it to Julia for the details on some of the pilot work.
Thank you.
And thank you, Julia. And before you start now, the reason why I'm coming down, I'm going to try to come down. I think my colleagues will try to come down heavy on the city, is because it's difficult, for us to sort of squeeze the private sector and say, we're going back on a handshake that we made with you. Meanwhile, the city of New York is going to take its time in getting it done. So it's kind of like we have to squeeze city government as hard as we possibly can, as a rationale to say, hey, private sector, building owners, we're going after you, we're smacking you with this, but like we're smacking, city government operations even harder. And we have like a firm commitment that they're going to phase out as quickly as possible. And so, I mean, there's no way I can get away with, or the council can get away with, putting a burden on the private sector that, that city government isn't willing to, step up to. You follow me? And so this is why we really want to come down hard on the city. So that helps us with, the heavy lift that we have with the private sector. So with that said, Julia, please continue.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Councilmember, for that question. We are definitely committed to leading by example with the city compliance with this law. As far as the schools go, the 180 number you have is the buildings that are remaining on fuel oil number 4 and are not currently in design or construction for conversion. We have 231 as of last year that were still burning, but a number of those are already in design.
If I could just jump in for a second. So, so the 180 number are those that are burning 4, and they're not, currently being, retrofitted. But the universe of schools that are burning number 4 today is larger than 180 because they're in the midst of being converted. Is that fair to say?
Yes, we have 231 that we're burning number 4 as of the last heating season, but we are in the process of converting some of that, which gets you to the 180 number that you had. There is one other facility that is burning number 4 currently, but as you said, the majority is schools. We're definitely committed to converting those as soon as possible and have been working with DCAS as well as the SDA and the Department of Education to develop a plan to do that.
Let me just go over the last sentence. So you're working with, DCAS and others to develop a plan to convert all city assets that are currently on 4 to a, to number 2 or solar or whatever you're going to do, something like other than 4. And so that plan doesn't yet exist, kind of like that vision of moving city assets off number 4 doesn't yet exist. It's in development. Like, do we know when that plan is going to exist?
It exists. Some of the aspects of it are being finalized, but it definitely is.
Okay, well, why don't you share some of the secrets with us in terms of if this plan exists, even in draft form, you have access to it. And I'm wondering whether or not that plan was developed with a mindset to meet the January 1st, 2030 phase out. Something tells me that that's probably what it was, because everyone knows that the January 1st, 2030 phase out is in law, it's on the books, and the city has to comply. That's probably what this was geared towards, meeting the 2030 mandate. Is that fair to say?
Initially, yes, but I can elaborate. There is a plan to electrify currently 5 schools in the next 2 fiscal years and $1 billion of budget in the executive budget to electrify schools by 2030. So we're looking to electrify as many schools as possible, as quickly as possible. As far as getting off number 4 fuel oil as quickly as possible, which is a separate, similar but separate issue. We are pursuing an operation and maintenance retrofit to convert to number 2 with B10, which is required by 2025, as quickly as possible and can be compliant with this law.
Would it be fair to say that, and again, I don't want to create sort of like an out for the administration or an argument for them. Oh, it looks like we've been joined by Councilmember Gutierrez, right? Is that and we're also joined by Councilmember Ressler. Councilmember Gutierrez and Councilmember Ressler are now with us. And yes, hi. And I would ask that council staff, keep me posted with members as they join the hearing. So as I was saying, Julia, is it the city's contention that and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but if the city were to have to abide by a mandate of January 1st, 2025, instead of January 1st, 2030, would the administration make the argument that faster phase out of number 4 would impede the electrification of schools? Is that what I'm going to hear?
No, the faster phase out would not impede the electrification of schools.
Good.
We're
Okay.
absolutely committed to.
You could have used that, by the way. I'm just saying, I gave you an argument and you just like, thank you for your honesty, because I almost like gave you, an argument to like use against this, but you didn't take it. So that shows your integrity. I appreciate it.
Thank you. The fuel oil for conversion to number 2 is going to be pursued via operation and maintenance, and the electrification as soon as possible via capital projects. But we are not interested in installing new fossil fuel infrastructure.
Okay, let me ask the following. Let's just say this bill happens. The new date is January 1st, 2025. We're asking, many buildings, and because the, majority of number 4 users are in the private sector. And so we do this. Can the administration get this done by that date?
I'll take that.
Okay.
Yeah. So one of the things that we have to consider is our permitting at New York City DEP for the equipment is on a triennial basis. And we would need, once we have legislation in place, about 6 months to create a rule to have these conversions in place and take place. So that puts us, I believe, at a period of time where it's maybe, let's say, January to start. January 2023. That doesn't really give us enough time. And my view, and I think others in the city share this view, is that we should probably begin this type of transition during summer months, not the heating season.
Yes, I mean we've actually heard that from DEP, and I think that a July 1st date would be better than a January 1st date, because if anybody was like out of compliance and their boiler got shut off, better to shut off a boil on, July 1st than January 1st. And because, we don't want any public safety, we don't want to hurt people. So, like a little bit of cold water is, not as bad as no heat. But we're just playing with like dates here. And so, but when this, we feel pretty confident about this bill, and we just want to make sure the city is going to be able to do its share, and not have the private sector come back at us and say, like, you can't even get the city with infinite resources to get this stuff done. Meanwhile, we in the private sector have to like push and shove to get to get it done. So this, unfortunately, is going to be a situation where the city really has to lead by example and kind of figure it out. But anyway, you were, please continue. I just wanted to add that to, from our point of view, because the city is not the biggest user. The biggest users are, private sector buildings, and so so we need the city to do what it can in its own, in its own facilities, particularly schools, and also using the accelerator program and everything that's going to have to do. That's where you come in, Julia, to make sure everybody knows what they got to do and they can do it and they get financing and, on and on. And so, did you have anything more, Angela, on that?
I think just simply to emphasize that we want to have accurate and consistent, clear messaging for this building stock. And in fact, we want to acknowledge—
When you say building stock, you mean the city government stock, right?
I mean both the city and the private.
Oh, fine.
Yep. And we want to make sure that we have a firm understanding of the costs. As you know, our costs have been volatile as of late in terms of fuel, oil, and even natural gas. And we just want to take that into account when we're thinking about transitioning these buildings.
Certainly, yeah. But I don't sell short the Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice. They seem to know, like they know exactly where these buildings are. There's, there's 1,849 that, use it solely. Number 4, there's 1,517 that use it as a backup fuel. So it looks like, the mayor's office is already like on the case, like they know where these buildings are. It would just be a matter of figuring out what kind of help they need in order to make this all happen. And so with that, I have kind of gone on and on here. I always like to engage my members sort of early in the process. I, reserve the right to come back for more questions. Right now, it is my pleasure to recognize my good colleague, Councilmember Julie Menon. I recognize Councilmember Menon for questions.
Thank you so much, Chair. And I have to say, I loved your history lesson. I thought that was fantastic. I worked many years ago on number 6 issues. So it was a wonderful walk down memory lane. So thank you for taking the time to do that. So I have 2 questions. The East Harlem part of my district, Council District 5, has very high asthma rates. So I wanted to get an understanding from the administration of what effect would phasing out the remaining number 4 boilers have on the city's air quality.
Thank you for recognizing that air quality benefit. I don't have the actual tonnages or pounds reduced, but we do know based on the number 6 conversions that there is a tremendous reduction in 3 of the important pollutants, and that is nitrogen oxides, sulfur content, and also the PM 2.5, which is really the inhalable respiratory aspects of particulate matter. And that's the one that is usually creates an asthma incidence or incidence of air quality illnesses. So we can get back to you with more precise numbers. We have calculated that out. I just didn't bring it and I don't have it at my fingertips.
Okay, thank you. The other question I have is regarding the NYCC retrofit grants. I wanted to get a better understanding of how many grants have been disseminated in what neighborhoods in particular.
Julie, I'm going to turn that to you in terms of NYCC support.
Sure, of course. Yeah, NYCC grants would be coming from the state level, so I don't have information in front of as far as where those grants went, but we are definitely happy to see what we can get to you and work with council members to advocate to the state to distribute grants equitably.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd love it if we could get, Chair, if I could ask if that information could go to the committee so that we make sure that there is real equity in terms of the disbursement of these grants and that neighborhoods in need are actually getting access to them.
By all means, Councilor, I think that's a great question, and I direct the committee council to make sure that all members of the committee and anyone else who is interested in the council, for example, people who may sign on to this bill, get that information as well, so we can have that. And I ask that Councilmember Menon be granted a little more time because she asked me a question, and that shouldn't count against her time.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And then I guess my last question, and thank you, Chair, for that extra time, is just on the accelerator. If you could talk a little bit more about the interaction between the public and the accelerator, like how many applicants have there been? I didn't understand that part of the testimony. If you could just give a little bit more specifics on it.
And I will say that I will essentially make that my question. So when the clock runs out, we will have the benefit of a full answer from the administration. Take as long as you want.
Thank you. Julia, do you have that data to share?
Of course, and thank you. And I'm sorry if my internet is cutting out a little. Please let me know if you missed anything that I've said. But as far as the accelerator goes, we provide free technical assistance via the
Time's
Nycc
expired.
Accelerator, as well as connections to financial incentives and going to number 2 fuel oil and with energy efficiency retrofits.
Sorry, I can't hear you at all. I'm
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit. You're breaking up a little bit, Julie. You're breaking up. Is there anything you can do from your end to help that?
Sure,
I tell you
I'm
what,
sorry
yeah,
about
yeah. I would say switch your camera off, which you just did, and might give you a little more bandwidth.
Yes, that is what I tried. Can you hear
Yeah.
me a little better now? Okay, sorry about that. I'll start over. So the New York City Accelerator provides technical assistance as well as connections to financing mechanisms and incentives to help buildings to perform energy efficiency work, general decarbonization work, and more capital. We want to ensure that buildings that are complying with this law are also considering their local law 97 compliance, as well as the biodiesel requirements that Chair Gennaro was speaking about, so that there's a lot of synergy among these, and that the accelerator can help to tie all of these together. As of today, the program has engaged 3,145 buildings, and the current goal is to assist 5,850 buildings. We definitely have information on where these number 4 fuel oil buildings are, and we expect to do direct outreach to help them to meet all of their climate goals.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Menon, for your questions. And as you heard, I have directed staff of the committee to make sure that the information received from the administration is given out to all the members of the committee and anyone who may sign on to this bill. So thank you. Are there any other members of the committee or members in general who may be on who wish to ask a question of the administration? Seeing none, we'll move on to our next witness, but not without thanking Angela and Julia for their good testimony. And again, I also have to make sure people know how hard Angela has worked over the years, to make sure that we got to this good place, and we're all working together back in the day. Like, okay, who's going to do number 6? And DEP said, like, we can do that by rulemaking, but like the council had to do the cleaning of number 4. We're working with the state to get them to make 2 to go ultra low. We worked with the administration on bio, even though they came from us. So it was a good little operation that we had, and now we are reinventing that wheel. And so we certainly expect good things, and I'm certainly happy that Angela is still there, and look forward to working with Julia as well. And so thank you very much for your good testimony. We would ask that someone from the administration stay on the Zoom here to get the benefit of all the good testimony that we're going to hear. I don't know if that's going to be someone from InterGov or Julia herself or whatever, but we need to make sure someone from the administration is staying on this throughout the entirety of the hearing. Are we got a handshake on that, Angela? We do. Okay, great. Okay. Thank you very much. I'll turn it back over to Madam Moderator, who can call the next witness.
Now we're going to turn to the public testimony. I'd like to remind everyone that we'll be calling on individuals one by one. Each panelist will be given 2 minutes to speak. Please begin once the sergeant has started the timer and given you the cue to begin. Council members who have questions for a particular panelist, please use the raise hand function in Zoom, and I will call on you after the panelist has completed their testimony. For a panelist, once your name is called, a member of our staff will unmute you, and the sergeant of arms will give you the go-ahead to begin upon setting the timer. Please wait for the sergeant to announce that you may begin delivering your testimony. Our first witness today is Lonnie Portis of We Act.
And Madam Moderator, if we could just maybe just list the first three witnesses so that they know they're on deck. You know, so we got Lonnie, and then so who's after Lonnie? Who's after that?
After Lonnie, we have Rocco Lacertosa of the New York Energy Coalition. And then we have Carlos Castel-Croke of the New York League of Conservation Voters. And after that, we have Brett Thomason of the New York Steamfitters Local 638.
Thank you, Samara.
Lonnie?
Yeah, ready?
The time will
Lonnie,
begin.
you're on. You're on. Good to see you. Good to
Nice
see
seeing
you.
you too. Good afternoon, Chair Gennaro and the Committee on Environmental Protection. I'm Lonnie Portis. I'm the Environmental Policy and Advocacy Coordinator at We Act for Environmental Justice. As Chair Gennaro summed up in his amazing introduction, kind of comes down to fuel number 4 oil is dirty, and it produces a high level of particulate matter that pollutes our air. And since our beginnings, We Act for Environmental Justice has been fighting for cleaner air uptown. Harlem has always dealt with the poor air quality in comparison to other neighborhoods due to the disproportionate placement of bus depots, plant sanitation sites, train and truck yards, truckways creating traffic, and more. And the rates of childhood asthma are higher than average rate in New York City, and other impacts such as cardiovascular disease are plaguing Northern Manhattan due to environmental injustices. Under New York City's Clean Heat program, number 6 fuel oil was successfully banned. However, number of fuel oil is still allowed until 2030. While many buildings have phased out of this oil, buildings in lower income neighborhoods and neighborhoods of color still use number 4. To quote Dr. Diana Hernandez's 2018 article about the issue, residential fuel oil number 4 continued to be burned by 3,253 residential buildings. I'm sure those numbers have been updated here since then, despite the city's efforts to educate and incentivize owners to switch cleaner fuels. Of these buildings, 1,724 or 53% were clustered in Manhattan north of 110th Street and the Bronx, disproportionately higher than the area's population. Only 1/5 of the city's residents live in these neighborhoods. Ultimately, banning number 4 fuel oil in 2025, 5 years earlier than currently projected, will lead to direct air quality improvements in our communities. We Act has been advocating for speeding up this phase out for many years, and happy to see this discussion happening today. When this bill was originally introduced, Local Law 97 was not a law with the earlier phase out of the fuel oil. We do have concern that it will take some time for these buildings longer to install more energy efficient heating sources.
Lonnie, keep going. Just wrap up in a minute, okay?
I'm wrapping up. Thank you. To mitigate this unintended impact, it is important that the city proactively reach out to buildings who have to phase out the fuel in the system and affordably electrifying, meaning offering financing if needed, instead of switching to natural gas sources or other fuel grades. We know which buildings will have to do this phase out, and so it should be, they should be and targeted the most. So therefore, I join advocates and experts and community members to urge the city to pass introduction 0470. And thank you, Councilmember Gennaro and the Committee on Environmental Protection for holding this timely hearing on such an important matter.
Thank you, Lonnie. It's always great to see you. And please give my best to Peggy and everybody at We Act. And it seems like this hearing is a little bit kind of like flying under the radar. We're not having, like lots and lots of environmental advocates coming forward, but certainly, if We Act is with us, then we've got good support, and we know of We Act's ability to rally the EJ community behind this bill, and we want to work with you to do that, to get into the community, to make sure that people know that this is something that we really have to try and get done. And I know I can count on you and We Act and other like-minded organizations to help us get this over the finish line. So I really appreciate you being here, Lonnie, and and we look forward to working with you and WEACT and others to make this bill a reality. We appreciate it very much. Thank you, Lonnie. Madam Moderator, next up.
Our next witness is Rocco Lassertosa from the New York State Energy Coalition.
Thank you, Rocco. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Thank you.
It's time to begin.
Thank you, Chairman Gennaro and committee members for the opportunity to testify before you today. My name is Rocco J. Lassertosa, and I serve as the Chief Executive Officer of the New York State Energy Coalition, NYCC. NYCC serves as the voice of the biodiesel and heating oil industry from Manhattan to Montauk. Today, I would like to focus my testimony on Intro 470, sponsored by Chairman Gennaro and Council members Caban, Brannan, Brewer, Joseph, and Nurse, which will require building owners to end the use of number 4 oil by December 31, 2023 for specific boilers and by January 1, 2025 for all boilers. Since 2012, NYCC has worked tirelessly with our state and local partners to ensure that a cleaner and more renewable liquid fuel was being used in buildings throughout New York City and state. Starting in the Bloomberg administration, NYCC has worked with the City Council, the Mayor's Office, and environmental organizations to phase out heavy heating oils in New York City and to require biodiesel blends in all heating oil, including B5 today and B20 biodiesel by 2034. The industry has invested tens of millions of dollars in infrastructure in New York to ensure that there is a larger and more accessible supply of biodiesel for New York customers. I would like to publicly thank Chairman Gennaro for his leadership on this issue. We would not have made the tremendous gains in air quality in this city without your expertise and leadership a decade ago, and we support you today. This year marks 10 years since you set out to create a cleaner and more sustainable heating fuel, and I am pleased to say that those efforts have resulted in the removal of nearly 500 million gallons of petroleum from the market. We continue to push forward, with many members going well beyond the required biodiesel blend, selling customers B20 and even B50. It is truly an exciting time for our industry. Similarly, we worked with Chairman Gennaro and the former and current sustainability czar, Rohit Agrawala, on phasing out number 4 and number 6 oil in New York City. We are equally proud of that achievement. Our industry's future is in clean, ultra-low sulfur heating fuel blended with higher blends of biodiesel, so we're happy to phase out the heavy fuel oils. We agreed to a time schedule reflected in current law.
Please wrap up, Rocco.
Sure.
But, you know,
Which dictated.
It's okay, but just kind of finish your thoughts.
Will do. Which dictated 6 oil be phased out by 2015 and that number 4 be phased out by 2030. The bill, Intro 470, would accelerate the already codified timeline by 5 years. NYCC is committed to a cleaner energy future and remains committed to an accelerated phase out of number 4 heating oil. Our only request is that the City Council coordinate its efforts to the extent possible with the New York State legislature for a consistent and reasonable timeline. We look forward to discussing this legislation further with the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Rocco. Always good to hear from you, and always good to work with your industry to green heating oils. We've gone from 6 to the old 4 to the cleaner 1500 ppm sulfur 4 to number 2 going from full your ultra low. I know there are a lot of things going on in the in your industry to ultimately go to carbon zero heating oils, and so this is a testament to to your members' commitment to green their product. But I'm grateful to hear from those that sell the oil, which is your members, that they are that this is something that they are on board with, just like anyone else in this mix. Want to make sure it's done in a way that kind of makes sense for your members. Can you tell me a little bit about what's going on in the state and the ability and what's going on there? Because you mentioned some sort of reconciliation between what we're doing here and what we're offering. If you can tell us about that.
Correct. Yeah. The Senate had passed a bill to phase out number 4 oil by 2027. It didn't pass. It died in the assembly. And the question there, or the concern there, was costs that the assembly staff brought up, potential costs to consumers and so on.
Let me just stop you there for a second.
Sure.
So I'm going to take a guess and say that I certainly don't speak for the assembly, but when they say cost, were they talking about if private buildings that are currently burning number 4 go to more expensive number 2, then the increased costs that we borne by landlords will get transferred to tenants? Was that what that was about? Do you have any sense of that?
It was more a sense that first that the cost of conversion was one of the things that they brought up in terms of cleaning tanks and adjusting burners and so forth.
Right.
That was one of the main issues. So we would like to see some coordination there between the state and the city. Only because we have wholesalers who have 1 foot in the upstate region and 1 foot in the downstate region. So it would be a bit of logistical issue for them to have one fuel oil phased out a couple of years earlier than the other. So I think 2027 was what the state was looking at. That's what I wanted to just mention on that.
Okay, so we should know that that's going on, and and that was passed by the Senate. It presumably is going to come back next year.
It will come back next year.
And yeah, I'm not sure we can wait, but we'll. I will direct staff of the committee to talk to the staff. I guess did this come out of NCON? Is that what committee it was
Yes.
in?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So if I want to direct staff to talk to the Senate. NCON committee, which I guess is Kaminsky, but he's not running again, right?
Correct.
And then
Engelbrecht.
Paulin. Engelbrecht.
Actually, Paulin had the bill in the assembly.
Right, but it's it's. I mean, I go back with Steve 45 years, so it would be his guy, I guess. Steve List.
Steve List.
And so if I could direct staff of the committee and my own LD Nabby to reach out to the NCON committee and the Senate and the Assembly and just kind of like find out what's going on. That would be good information to have.
Okay.
So
could I mention one more thing, Councilman?
Sure.
I referenced in my testimony B20 and B50. We are actually two of the biggest burner manufacturers in the industry. Beckett and Carlin are right now ramping up to produce B100 burners, and they will have them in production by the end of the year. In other words, a B100 burner would eliminate petroleum completely and burn biodiesel exclusively. We have a laboratory out in Plainview, Long Island, that we are doing numerous tests.
That's the thing. You got a guy from Brookhaven National Laboratory.
That's right. Yes, Dr. Tom Butcher is works for us now, and he has 2 engineers who are working on different aspects of blending and also equipment to burn at these higher blends. We've had a lot of successful work done on this. So I just wanted to mention that we are moving even higher, and we want to see the fact that we want to do everything we can to help cleaning up and reducing emissions in New York City and New York State.
Thank you, Rocco, and it is kind of refreshing and a little surprising that the oil heat industry is like actually one step ahead of us. It's not like we're pulling you like you're pulling us. And so
we've been at it for a long time.
We certainly appreciate your commitment to a green future, and we thank you and your good industry for all your work and for your support of what we're trying to do here today.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity today.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to ask Rocco? We're friends. I just call him Rocco.
That's
Anyone
fine.
else? Anyone else who change my thing to gallery? Okay, I don't see any other questions for Rocco. Rocco, I thank you very much. Best to Linda, and we'll proceed to the next witness.
Our next witness is Carlos Castell-Croak from New York League of Conservation Voters.
Your time will begin.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carlos Castel-Croak. I'm the Associate for New York City Programs at the New York League of Conservation Voters. NYLCV represents over 30,000 members in New York City, and we are committed to advancing a sustainability agenda that will make our people, our neighborhoods, and our economy healthier and more resilient. NYLCV is committed to preserving healthy air quality in New York City and would like to offer support for Intro 470, which would speed up the phasing out of number 4 heating oil January 1st, 2025. This proposal can help drastically improve air quality in New York City. Although number 6 heating oil was phased out of 6,000 buildings by the end of 2015 as part of the New York City Clean Heat Program, other buildings all around New York City are still burning number 4, which releases large volumes of fine particulate matter in the air. Additionally, number 4 heating oil combustion disproportionately occurs in neighborhoods of lower socioeconomic status, therefore contributing to environmental injustice in New York City. The emissions released from burning number 4 oil are correlated with higher frequencies of cardiovascular disease, respiratory illnesses such as asthma and bronchitis, and death. Particulate matter, nitrous oxides, and sulfur dioxide are all emissions from burning number 4 oil, which when inhaled, it can cause respiratory illnesses and dysfunction. According to the Environmental Defense Fund, replacing number 4 oil with number 2 cuts particulate matter emissions by 90%, nitrous oxide emissions by 10%, and sulfur dioxide emissions by 68%. And that might be a little outdated, but we can see even more benefits from including the new blends that were discussed. Currently scheduled for phase out number 4 heating oil January 2030 is not aggressive enough. Pushing for the deadline forward to 2025 is a step the city can take to accelerate meeting the air quality goals spelled out in 1 NYC and our emission reduction goals. Just this 5-year difference would mean hundreds of deaths and thousands of emergency room visits averted. I'd like to thank the council for their support over the years on the environmental health issues that concern our members and look forward to continuing to work with them in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carlos. We can always count on you for great testimony. We can always count on LCV for sound environmental policies and your ability to advance them. Those are like the 2 elements that we get out of LCV in large degree, and we're very, very grateful for it, and we're grateful for your support. I couldn't have said it any better myself. You said it better than I did. You should have given the opening statement. But anyway, great testimony. We do very much appreciate it. Please give our best to Julian, Josh, and all the staff at LCV. And thank you for being with us today, and thank you for your support. Madam Moderator, before we go on to the next witness, I did get a little surprised when Rocco was testifying. He indicated that there were more supporters for this, more sponsors for this bill that I even knew about. Like the copy of the bill that was given to me for the purpose of today's hearing was me, Caban, and Brannon, and it seems that there are more sponsors than that, including Councilmember Nurse, I believe I heard him say. So I want to give record. So if you could read out all the sponsors that are on this bill, so that we can put it on the record. I mean, it's one thing for a witness to say that they're on the bill, but I want to hear it from the council itself, like the sponsors that are on this bill. So, okay, so it's me, it's Caban, it's Brannon. Go.
Brewer is another one.
Yep.
Nurse is another one. I don't know if there are any others.
I think I heard him say Councilmember Joseph, the chair of the Education Committee.
Okay.
Is she on?
I don't see her.
Okay, but anyway, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't leaving anyone off. I like the copy I got had 3 sponsors, and so I thank Councilmember Nurse and Councilmember Brewer, and Rocco made reference to Councilmember Nurse being on. Maybe she is, like maybe she isn't. But it would be great if she were, because she's chair of the Committee on Education, and we're talking about schools, and so that would be great. I just wanted to rectify that lapse, and with that we can move on to our next witness.
Our next witness is Brett Thomason of the New York Steamfitters Local 638.
Thank you. I'm a political director at Steamfitters 638. Councilmember, thank you for inviting us to this, Councilmember Gennaro, and thank you also for the staff time you've generously given. It's been great working with Nabby and Matt.
Sure, thank you.
I submitted a longer written testimony for anyone that wants to see it, so I'll keep this short, but we're here today supportive because our members work on boiler systems and the heating systems in buildings and large facilities. So this work directly implicates us. And one of the things we talk about when we talk about addressing the climate crisis is the need for a transition, because we know that things can't be done overnight. So when we say that our members do green jobs, this is the kind of work we do in aiding that transition. We know that not all buildings can be immediately electrified. So these are the kinds of upgrades and efficiency measures that can be taken so that we're making that transition to green energy ultimately. I would also add too, and a lot of folks have pointed out, kind of the byproduct of burning these fuels and what it does, especially for the vulnerable and the already infirm. But our members work day to day near those facilities. So this will have a real benefit on the job for their standard of living as we switch away from the dirtiest fuels and ultimately transition to clean energy. So I just I'll leave it there with our support and thank the council member for sponsoring this legislation.
Thank you, Brett. I go back with 638 a long time and really grateful for your members and your commitment to a greener future and your members' ability to facilitate that. Matt, my labor liaison, will certainly be in touch with you and any other labor support that you think that there is out there for this. Nabby, I'll make a note to Nabby to tell Matt, who's not on this, to have Matt reach out to Brett, see if we can get other labor partners. You would have some good insight to that, Brett, and so we would certainly appreciate that. So always great to work with the Steamfitters, and I go back a real long time, and the partnership continues. So thank you for being here. Thank you for representing labor in this very important topic, and we look forward to working with you and getting this thing done. So thank you, Brett. Appreciate it very much. Seeing no one else who is wishes to ask Brett a question, I thank you, Brett, for being here, and we'll move on to the next witness, Samara.
I think that's the final witness. I'm not sure we have any other witnesses. Has anyone else registered to testify today?
No others.
Okay.
Okay, so Samara, you tell me what to do now. I'm ready.
Gavel out.
Okay, so let me just, oh, you know what I didn't, because I worked, let me put this on the record, because I kind of went spontaneous when I was doing my opening statement. I failed to mention the most important part of it, of my opening statement, which is I'd like to thank the terrific committee staff who have done such great work over the years. Committee counsel Samara Swanson, policy analyst Richard Chawla, financial analyst Jonathan Seltzer, and finally my great legislative director, Nabby Kaur, for all their hard work. This turned out to be a short hearing, but there's a lot of push and shove that went to getting us to this good moment. And I really appreciate the staff for all that they did in making this good hearing, and which was hard, and putting up with me, which is even harder. With that said, I thank all of the witnesses who gave us their good testimony, all the council members who gave us their time and attention, and their views. And with that, this hearing is hereby adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.